Pat Brown, there is a heated debate in aviation that has probably gone on since the very early days. What's better, a high wing airplane or a low wing airplane? And I think we need to talk about it because
Uh,
we've both flown both. I'm sure we both have a preference, but well, I'll start out. I soloed in a Cherokee, a PA-28 Piper
right.
Cherokee, low wing airplane. Absolutely loved it. And I switched flight schools later, and they were flying 152s and 172s, high wing Cessnas. And most of my career, I've been in high wing Cessnas. And I actually prefer the high wing because of the hairstyle, which I was bequeathed with by evolution. I like the shade. Do you have a perspective on high wing and low wing?
I'm going to throw a wrench in the works and say mid-wing.
Ah, okay.
Because the Aerostar rules.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is a great airplane.
But I'll be serious for just a minute. Be serious for just a minute here. I don't care. I soloed in a Cessna 150. I took my check ride in a Cherokee 140. Um, I have owned um, both high wing and low wing airplanes. I think low wing airplanes look like real airplanes, like what you expect a real airplane should look like because that low wing. On the other hand, climbing up on the wing and down into the cockpit is sometimes a little bit of a challenge. And some of those airplanes just have one door. I've owned three 182s. One of the ones I have right now is a 182, and it's really easy to get in and out of, and it does everything well. But at the end of the day, I don't care.
I like it. And now that you mention it, I don't think I've ever owned a low wing. I've owned 152s, 172s, 182s, Piper Cubs,
Hmm.
and an Air Cam, which is actually a parasol wing because the wing doesn't attach to the fuselage. There is no fuselage per
Yeah,
se.
yeah.
It's just up there.
Hangs
But
by a
I've,
thread.
I've never owned a low wing. Now I might have a mission to go out and buy one. Well, what do you think the advantage to a low wing is? But if someone was looking for, if they're getting started and they say, well, as you say, it looks like a real airplane, is there an advantage to it?
I mean, honestly, Jamie, this argument or this debate, let me call it a debate. This debate has been going on for eons.
100 years at least.
Yeah, eons. And the Wright brothers solved that by putting two wings on the airplane. So there
One
was
to
no
lay on
argument.
and one to shade you.
Exactly. There's no argument there. Um, I, you know, I mean, there are some folks that will say you can use ground effect to your advantage in a low wing airplane where you don't quite have that much with a high wing airplane. But honestly, if you were truly PIC, which stands for pilot in command, not passenger in crisis, it and you have your airspeed under control, that stuff is pretty negligible. If you're approaching 10 knots too fast in a high wing airplane, you're going to float, and you're going
Mhm.
to float, and you're going to float. Um, if you're a little fast in a low wing airplane, you're going to float. Um, and I'm sure down in the comments, people will probably roast me about it. And I don't really care. Uh, I It just doesn't matter.
I like, first of all, that you're bold enough to say, I don't care about you people roasting me. As you know, I'm a delicate flower. I stay up late at night and cry every time somebody makes a rude comment.
I know I've experienced that, Jamie. I've seen you. It's not pretty.
But I will tell you, I actually do have a preference for high wing, and it's maybe a dumb one that people, and I like low wings. I've actually looked at some PA-28s. I wouldn't mind buying one to tell you the truth. But I like the simplicity of a gravity feed fuel system.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm in a low wing, the fuel tanks are below the carburetor or the engine, and I need that additional electric fuel pump to pump the fuel uphill.
Right.
I really like the simplicity of a gravity feed fuel system out of the upper wings, and it comes down. It just works great. Now, where that can get you, and I've had this problem in a J3 Cub, you have that header tank just above your knees in the front seat.
Right.
So the drop from the header tank to the carburetor, because it's 1930s technology, there's a carburetor. That's like an inch.
Yeah.
So as your fuel goes down, and which, as you know, you can tell because the coat hanger starts getting shorter on the cork, but the head pressure is so little, you have to be kind of careful of rapid throttle movements or
Right,
pitching up rapidly where
right.
the fuel sloshes around the tank. But yeah, in general, I do like high wings for the shade and the fuel system. But beyond that, as you say, I really don't care. And I would go so far as to say if somebody's thinking about learning to fly, just pick the airplane that's most available to you
Yeah,
and cost effective and airworthy. Don't worry about it because you get your certificate in one airplane, but then it's all transition training for everything else you do. So it
yeah.
doesn't matter what you're in.
Not really. I've seen Facebook posts, every now and then with annoying regularity. Someone will say, "Do you prefer a high wing or a low wing?" Kind of like, what radio call should you avoid making? I mean, somebody will make a post like that, and it's like, "Oh, well, here we go again." I don't participate really in that kind of stuff anymore, but and I get what you're saying about the gravity feed fuel system. We talked in a previous episode about engine failures and forced landings. And I had that situation in a Citabria with a gravity fed fuel system.
Mhm.
Didn't help. We still lost the engine.
Oh, yeah.
So
Anything can break.
anything can break. So, but I get that. I really do. Having had a fuel pump go out on a low wing airplane, I get that. But in terms of just overall, very generally speaking, overall, the way they handle it's just not that much different, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yep. I will give solace to the low wing fans that part of the advantage of a low wing with that slightly more complex fuel system is you're actually selecting which tank you want.
Yeah,
On the gravity feed system, I can select both. And if you say if there's a obstruction in a line,
yeah,
that can be a problem. But it can also be if you're not good with the rudders, keeping the ball centered, or if the airplane's out of rig, you can be draining one tank faster than the other,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
can find yourself with an empty tank
Yes. One
just
thing.
because.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh,
One thing.
please do. I deserve to be interrupted.
One one thing I do like about high wing airplanes is the strut that braces the wing. That is a little bit of an extra structural piece. Although um, the Cardinals and the 210s are cantilevers. Um, Several years ago, an examiner and an applicant were killed down in your neck of the woods in Florida when
Yeah.
the wing separated from a Piper Arrow, and that's what um, prompted an AD for certain PA-28 models to have an eddy current test run on the main spar. Because that failure happened in a place where you couldn't visually inspect the main spar. But having said that, the 210 and the Cardinal are both under a similar AD. I don't think it's an eddy current test, but there is a spar AD on both the 210 and the Cardinal. So,
Well,
um,
one of the things we tend to put out of our minds when we go look at the airplanes on the ramp or flying overhead, an awful lot of them are 50, 60, 70 years old.
yeah,
I mean, and they might be aluminum monocoque Cessnas, and a 1959 Cessna 172 doesn't look that much different than a 2022 Cessna 172,
right.
but they're separated by a whole lot of decades and metal fatigues.
It does over time. But something I have done check rides in 172s in particular that have 13,000 hours on the airframe.
Yeah.
And, they're not real pretty, but I look very, very closely at the maintenance records. And if the maintenance records aren't impeccable, I'm not going to go fly in it. But if the airplane is maintained appropriately, then there's no real reason to. I will tell you that I get a little uneasy. Um, Nervous is probably not quite the term, but I do get a little uneasy getting in PA-28s now, and I won't get into one unless I actually see the AD certificate, not just the logbook entry that says that all ADs have been complied with, but the
Mhm.
specific AD log entry about the eddy current test and the accompanying certificate that shows that it's been done. I won't get in an airplane like that unless I see that. And even then, it's there, in the back of my mind. I have to tell you, um, hmm, I hope this isn't one of them. You know,
Well,
that,
that's a really good point because whether you're flying a high wing or a low wing, whether you're a student pilot or if you're shopping to buy that airplane, there's nothing wrong with asking somebody, "Hey, can you show me that this airplane is airworthy? Can you show me that it's gotten through its last annual, that the ADs have been complied with?" And if you're uncomfortable in any way, to your point, Pat, you just say no. I had a guy years ago who got a Cherokee 140 through a business deal gone bad, and the client paid him by giving him the Cherokee, and he was taking flight lessons because now he owns an airplane, but it had corrosion on the spars. And I just said, no, I'm not going to fly this one with you. I'll fly another airplane with you, but
yeah,
not this one. And
yeah.
he wasn't mad, but he was surprised. And it's just, I don't need $15 that bad. So,
Yeah, yeah, back in the day when you did it for 15 bucks an hour. I know, and
well,
that
I'm
was
old, man.
could have been yesterday, I don't know, but it's probably been a while. Then that's actually probably worth talking about at some point in a future episode is the airworthiness of the airplane.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll
Let's
we'll
do that.
plan on that. So people should definitely beyond clicking like because the button's right there. I mean, it's right there. And subscribing to the channel so you can listen to the wisdom of Pat Brown any darn time you want. We should definitely make plans to come back and do an episode on just that topic. And I hope we see the rest of you here. So thanks so much for tuning in for Pat Brown in the spectacular state of Texas. And I think he's the lieutenant governor. If he's not, he should be.
Don't accuse me of that.
Jamie Beckett right here in Central Florida. You know who you are and where you live. We'll see you next time.